people cross your boundaries, or you don't feel safe, or you don't feel comfortable, you can leave. You can peace out.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself permission to say, okay, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel comfortable. I deserve respect. You deserve respect, and you deserve to be loved. Hi, I'm Angela Williams.
And I'm Katie Sudano.
And I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse.
And I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse.
Welcome to Voice Up for the Voiceless. If you're just tuning in with us today, we're so excited that you're spending this time with us. Voice Up for the Voiceless is a podcast that gives a voice to survivors of child sexual abuse. It also digs in a little deeper to exploitation.
Breaking the silence.
And we love to interview survivors to be able to tell their stories. And we
Professionals.
Experts in the field that are doing the hard work.
Yep.
So we are in the holiday season, and we would
I feel kind of giddy.
Yeah. It's always fun, but it cannot be merry for some people. Sometimes this is a time that brings a lot of grief and brings a lot of pain. Some survivors, as you know, Katie, have to see their perpetrators over the holiday season, and that's often a difficult thing to do. So we want to kind of talk and unpack that today.
Yeah. And
then some survivors, unfortunately, are ostracized and alienated from their families.
I know, it's such a shame. I feel giddy. Christmas is right around the corner, the holidays for those that don't celebrate Christmas. But it is a stressful time. It's a beautiful time, and yet it's also a very lonely time, I think, for a lot of people in general, but mostly for survivors. But I think you had something very specific in mind to discuss today. What was that?
Well, I think that we have to talk about our holiday celebrations and coming to those celebrations with expectations. Mm-hmm. And I think people are in different phases of their healing. So what I want to say to the survivor out there is you really have to do what's safe and what's healthy for you. And sometimes that means not accepting the invitation if you don't feel healthy. It kind of depends on where you are in your continuum of healing, but I feel like we've got to address this issue, because I know myself, I've had very difficult time in having to face my perpetrator, and having to kind of swallow that big pill when you don't have support from other family members. Mm-hmm. And you too have dealt with the same thing.
Before we go into my story, do you have a specific time frame or point in your life that you can share with our audience on what the scenario was and how you felt?
So, Katie, when was there a time that you felt so uncomfortable or, really stressed? Or I know a lot of survivors feel anxiety around the holidays. It probably starts way before the holidays, thinking about gatherings and whether the person that abused them is going to be there or not, and they're going to have to face them.
Yeah. Well, actually, I did write about this in my book. I don't know if I stressed exactly that it was Christmas, and I think I just said it was a family reunion around Christmas time. But I didn't have the preliminary stressors because, to be quite honest, I don't remember knowing that my perpetrator was going to be there. So I went in there super excited for this family reunion vacation in Costa Rica, and excited to get to know the country and get to know other cousins and family on my mother's side that I had never, probably met when I was little, but that I didn't remember. And I don't know at what point did I actually realize that not only was my perpetrator going to be there, and by the way, his name is Peter. I don't have any qualms in sharing that. But I realized that he was going to be on the same plane in the same row.
Oh my
And
goodness.
mind you, I had just disclosed my abuse to the family, specifically to my grandparents. And then my grandparents told, my aunt and uncles, and then they told everybody. And it was a huge relief for me to tell because it had, I was spiraling and I was trying to hold on to the secret. And it wasn't going very well for me. So when I disclosed, it was weird. I was like, expected for all this support and all this, I'm going to be honest, kind of woe is me, So I wanted to feel supported and loved and noticed and cherished and protected. And I think it was maybe 6 weeks after that, I'm on an airplane with this guy I hadn't seen. I think it had been almost not quite a year that I had left Germany to go to here to Georgia where my grandparents were,
And broke your silence.
and broke my silence. So it was just really shocking and awkward. And I thought I'd be able to handle it. I mean, I've held secrets and lied a lot about my feelings and about where I was with my own situation in life. And I was really good at creating stories in my head to kind of cope with my real internal feelings. And then when I went on the airplane, I wrote about this very explicitly in the book, just the physicality that was going on in my body. And so it was difficult. And then when I realized everyone knew, the shame and guilt just washed over me. I felt like a ton of bricks. And I felt like I was this little girl in the corner, and my abuser, Peter, was having the time of his life, and everyone was kind of cheering him on. And I'm thinking, what he's done to me.
And how did he treat you? Your abuser?
Oh, like normal. Like nothing ever happened. And it's not like it was a secret. He admitted that he had done it, and I'm sorry, I'll never do it again, kind of thing. And I think he had the attitude of, so what are you going to do about it? Because it was the second time that he had been caught abusing me.
So almost boldly in your face.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he didn't portray that really. I mean, of course, I have a filter. So, I was still scared of him, and yet I knew he wouldn't hurt me. In fact, I said specifically in my book, my compliance is no longer for sale, is what I said. But it was just weird. It was weird. It was awkward. And to be honest, towards the end of that vacation, something did happen that was said to me. And whether it was said in the way that I heard it, I don't know. Probably not. But we're survivors. We have sensitive feelings, and we hear things wrong, and we probably exaggerate what's going on because of the trauma.
And the world around us wants us just to forget about it
and
to
to minimize it, and it's no big deal. So at the end of that trip, a family member I heard said something to the fact that, take those shorts off, because they weren't mine. I was borrowing them from my cousin. And I'm like, no, it's okay. I'm not going to get them dirty. And I remember he leaned over me, and I remember him saying, I'm not talking about that kind of dirty. And it was just, I was 14.
Just a little girl.
I know, it broke my heart. And in the book, I describe it like I literally died that day. Not literally, I guess I should. Metaphorically, I died. My little girl was just, the innocence was just totally broken. And I definitely went into a shell. And I think that's what led to future abuses and things in my life that it was just very painful. So, of course, I felt unloved, unsupported, unprotected, dirty, shame, the whole thing. So it wasn't a great Christmas.
No.
But you know what's weird? If you look at the video, because everything was documented, it looked like I was having a great time.
Yeah.
I smiled and I flirted and I, threw my hair around and I made shows for the kids, and it was like nothing ever happened.
Well, you had that mask on. You had that mask on that says everything's okay when everything is not okay.
Yeah, I think my mom even said years later, and I wrote about it in the book, how could you have been so abused? Look at you. You look happy. You look fine.
Yeah.
And they just don't get it. They don't understand. They can't possibly, and maybe they don't want to because it's so painful.
Of course, very painful. Well, I just stuffed all of my pain down, and for the family, because I wanted to be a part of the family, I wanted to be with my siblings. I went back into the situation with my perpetrator and just acted like everything was fine. Everything was okay.
And how did he act towards you? Just like normal too?
Just like normal. I think I was so afraid of him. There was so much fear that was always hanging over because he had complete total power, and the abuse, the physical abuse was, as bad as the sexual abuse. So I just was afraid. And
did other people feel afraid around him?
Yeah, there was a lot of fear around him. He was very
just
volatile.
Carried that.
Well, he was just a volatile person that you just never knew what would set him off, when it would set him off, and how severe that explosion would be. So
was your Christmases kind of like on edge a little bit, or just
always?
People just?
Oh no, it was you held your breath. Yeah, it was
wow.
It was definitely on edge. You definitely held your breath. And I just remember during that time of having to confront or being at events that he was at, it's like no one addressed it. Like it just was this big pink elephant in the room that was in the room, but nobody talked about it. You didn't discuss it. You didn't talk about it.
But that's the shame in all of this, because I think now we're more open to discussing, but back then you don't talk about that stuff.
I don't know, even now, I really feel like survivors are in a situation where they have two choices. They can literally not go to the event, not be a part of family celebrations, not be a part of, Christmas dinner and Christmas Eve and Christmas Day.
Oh, it's so hard though.
They cannot do that.
Yeah.
Or they can go and put themselves in a situation where they know it's going to be very painful. I mean, what other choices do we have unless they want to make a different choice this year and maybe go serve somewhere, maybe give, and get kind of out of ourselves where we're in all this pain. That's why I really pray that survivors that are listening, please get involved in a church family, because sometimes that becomes your extended family.
Yeah.
But I think people are just so uncomfortable with us saying the truth of what happened.
Yeah.
And I think there's a level of guilt in families that they were the bystanders and they let it happen. They didn't step in. They didn't see, they didn't protect. I don't mean that they let it happen, but you know what I'm saying? They weren't the protector at all. They weren't the safe person that asked.
A lot of times they don't know. And I'm going to say
they don't know what to say.
I'm going to say we in this situation, because if you've heard our previous podcasts, you know that I've been very open, not only about my story, but about my son's. And, I don't know how he feels about me sharing so much. I don't share the details, but I'm going to say we in this situation, because I was the mother and I had the son, the child that was abused.
That's a whole nother dynamic.
Yeah, but
and it brings a whole nother grief.
And I didn't know about it. And yet here we are. We're doing Christmas. We're doing Thanksgiving. We're doing birthdays without knowing what had happened. But I'm going to say this. I'm going to be very bold in saying this. The minute I knew, all bets were off. There is no way, and I'm saying no way, that I would ever entertain going to the perpetrator from this point forward and allowing or having anything to do with an event that involves me, my girls, or my son that was abused. And I'm going to say, I'll back up too, because I'm going to be very honest. When we first knew, and when it was brought to our attention, obviously it's hard to maneuver. It's hard to manage. Who do you tell? Who do you not tell?
And it was not in the moment. It was years later that you found out.
Years later. Yeah. My son was an adult and the perpetrator was an adult. And this was a youth on youth thing, which I want to preface. It's just as traumatic, and if not even more confusing. And they were about 3.5, almost 4 years apart. But it was enough of a part where he hadn't even had sex education in elementary school. And the perpetrator was the youngest of 4 boys. So he probably knew a little too much for his age, probably a little exposed to things he shouldn't have. But I think it was in 8th or 9th grade or around, because we're not sure about the timing. That's neither here or there. The fact of the matter is it happened. It happened in, family quarters. And when we did confront the perpetrator, he admitted to it. He was, he did say he was abused. And I immediately wanted to embrace him and forgive him. And I think I was just too quick to forgive him because I saw what it did to my son. I think he felt a little betrayed.
Well, you weren't too quick to forgive because that's what God calls us to do.
Correct. But the fact is,
the embracing, maybe.
The embracing. And then I had him over for dinner a couple of times to try to, I wanted to have the conversation so that there could be healing and moving forward without this kind of cloud over it. But I recognized it was way too soon, too fast. And he changed his story. So now I don't know if he was abused or not because he told different things to different people. But what I will say is a couple years later when, I've not spoken to my family in a long time. It's a shame, but it's just something I had to do to separate myself from, from the whole situation. Because I kind of felt like the family did what they did to me, they're doing to my son.
Yeah.
Where
the mama bear came out.
Yeah, they kind of embraced the abuser saying, oh, boys will be boys. It was then, it's now, it's no big deal, minimizing it. Yet my son has gone through so many difficult things in his life because of the trauma and because he didn't get the healing he needed at the time. But my whole point in saying this is that a few years later, my mom and I had a really long talk. It was very needed. I shared with her things that we had discussed with other family members. I even had recordings. I let her listen to the recordings on how people were kind of communicating towards us about the situation, which wasn't the nicest sense of communication. I was a lot of blaming and deflecting. I was blamed for not telling certain people, which is weird, but that's a whole nother show. But it's crazy because it was around December, and my kids really didn't want my mom to come for Christmas Eve dinner because they needed to kind of heal from what had happened and how everything was kind of unfolded. And so I said, all right, as much as I want my whole family there, I wanted to honor their feelings, and especially Andre's. My voice is cracking. I'm sorry because this enraged me. Just as my mom and her husband were leaving my house, I don't know why I asked. I'm like, so what are you guys doing for Christmas Eve? Because it was like 2 days later from our conversation. And she's like, oh, we're going to so-and-so's house for Christmas Eve dinner. I about lost it. It took every ounce of me to be quiet and let her leave. I gave her a hug. I went inside. I'm shaking now because your grandson, you just heard about 6 hours of conversation and recordings about how he was abused and he was raped, sodomized. Your own grandson. And now you're going to the person who did that to his house for Christmas.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it.
I think so many family members, they don't understand how their actions impact us. They don't understand how when they align with the perpetrator, when they protect the perpetrator, when they see the perpetrator, even how that hurts us and how that affects us and how that impacts us. And it breaks families apart. I mean,
does.
It really breaks families apart.
And it's crazy because they're her family too. But I think for me, it was just all the feelings I had that Christmas in Costa Rica came raging to the forefront. Back. Yeah, because you feel alone, you feel isolated, you feel unheard and unloved and unprotected, all the things. And you just want to be embraced. You just want to be loved and understood. And, I know it's a hard thing because You and I both know what it's like to put that mask on and pretend everything's okay when your whole innocence was ripped from you. You can't ever get that back.
So for you survivors that are listening, and I'm really just speaking to you right now because I just want you to know that we know your pain and that we understand. And we understand the turmoil that you're in right now, whether to go, whether not to go, whether to see your perpetrator, even if your perpetrator is not going to be there. So often, you know, it's your abuse, what happened to you, nobody wants to talk about it. So there again, you don't feel supported. So I just want to encourage you to just really do what feels safe for you. Really think about whether you need to put yourself in that situation. You know, you can forgive someone, but you don't have to have dinner with someone. Forgiving and being a part of their lives and having them in your lives, if it's not healthy for you, you don't have to do it.
But Angela, what about the kids?
What about the
kids?
What
if they don't have a choice?
They don't have a
choice.
choice.
To go.
They don't have a choice.
I mean, hopefully they're watching. Even
hopefully,
though,
hopefully your parent. You can go to your parent. And so often, you know, for so many years, no one knew. No one knew about my sexual abuse. So if you're a child, please, please reach out to someone that you can trust and just tell them what's happening, because you deserve to be saved. You deserve to be rescued. And we do know that there are little eyes on this podcast also.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. You know, I don't think a lot of times when you're in an environment with family members, generally speaking, nothing's going to happen to you, but it does happen a lot. But just stay with people. Don't ever go alone.
Don't be alone. Absolutely. Do not be alone.
Yeah, because these things happen in 2 seconds. And if you have told your parents, let them know. And parents, listen to your children. If they don't feel comfortable. In fact, I remember you told me this years ago. Now I'm Latin. And Latins, we kiss, we hug, you know, we're very touchy-feely, and we get into everyone's space, whether you like it or not. That's just how we are. And I'm sure there's families of all nations that do that, but specifically my family, the Latin. And I remember you told me something. You said, if your child doesn't feel comfortable going up and saying hello with a kiss or a hug or sitting on their lap, don't force them.
No.
Let them lead how they feel with that person, because they know they have, first of all, an incredible intuition that they read people much better than I think we do, because we're all, you know, nicey nice.
But abuse does happen in the home, and it does happen over the holidays, and it does happen in basements and closets and sheds in the backyard. And I, you know, have been working with survivors for many, many years and have heard these stories. So please, please pay attention to where your child is at all times. Pay attention of who they're with. You know, pop in if they're in the basement playing video games. Be present and
now
recognize.
You can put cameras everywhere. So pop a camera on the
there
wall.
You go.
I mean,
and recognize when your child doesn't feel comfortable with someone. Like, be intuitive.
Or yourself. If you don't feel comfortable, imagine your child. So, I mean, I'm tired of this diplomatic being nicey nice because you're a family member. If you don't feel comfortable with someone, I mean, come on.
And for you survivors too, if you're in a family situation at a family event and people cross your boundaries, or you don't feel safe or you don't feel comfortable, you can leave. You can peace out. You know, give yourself permission to say, okay, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel comfortable. I deserve respect. You deserve respect, and you deserve to be loved. And you just need to.
I'm laughing because you remember the movie The Help?
The Help.
Where she did the pie?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Just don't do that.
Don't do the pie.
Don't spit in the food.
But Katie and I are praying for you, and we hope you have a wonderful holiday season. And we hope that we inspire you in some way by sharing our stories, sharing our pain. We've been there. We've been in uncomfortable situations. We've been in places we didn't feel safe. We've been places that people walked all over us, and we didn't have the strength to really stand and have good boundaries. boundaries.
Yeah.
So it's about being healthy, and it's about, even if you've forgiven your perpetrator, doesn't mean that they have to be a part of your life.
For sure.
We just wanted to convey that message during this holiday season, and to just let you know that we are praying for you, and that we do wish you a very, very Merry Christmas.
Absolutely. Are we done? That's it? Yeah. I feel like there's so much more to talk about, though.
Let's talk about
more. We can be done.
We can talk about more.
I just feel like there's that one thing, I can't put my finger on it. I feel like He wants us to say that one thing, and I don't know what that one thing is. I don't know. Maybe it's the one thing out of the Bible, or a verse, or something that could just help people who have to face the perpetrator during the holidays.
Well, God says, if it's up to me, make peace with all men. If it's up to you, so just do your part and don't worry about what happens, after that. And if you need to go and be honest about what's happened, maybe that's a time that you have to break the silence and you have to tell people. So that's another whole layer of challenge.
Yeah. Well, we are Voice Up. And the only thing maybe this is the message, is just to voice up, tell them. Maybe, if you don't want to go where the holidays are going and there's a family gathering, voice up before. Don't be afraid. Yeah. Because I think a lot of times we're afraid of an outcome that we can't even predict. Mm-hmm. And, I think if you voice up sooner than later, it'll be much easier. And I think you'll have a lot more support than if you, unfortunately, wait years and years later.
Yeah, and the holidays are, it's the birth of our Jesus Christ, and we're celebrating that birth, and it should be a joyful time. So I just know in my own experience for myself and for working with many, many, many survivors over the years, that it's just the holiday season becomes such a stressful time to even go back to maybe the home that it happened in. Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think of that.
And the triggers.
Yeah.
Going back to the town, the city.
I know. We moved so much that wouldn't happen, but I didn't even think about that.
So often, just that even shaking fear, cold sweats of, I've got to spend the night in the bed that it happened in. I remember.
Oh my gosh, I just got the chills.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And that it's devastating because, you there again, you want to be a part of your family. You don't want to be ostracized. You don't want to be the black sheep. Mm-hmm. You wish this had never happened, but you didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
You hear me, survivors? We didn't ask for it. We didn't ask for our innocence to be taken. But it was. And unfortunately, we're the ones that have to navigate it.
So, I honestly didn't even think about like seeing a piece of furniture or photographs or songs, smells.
There are things from my childhood that I can literally see that were in the original house that I was raised in that will bring back triggers and will honestly give me a panic attack.
What do you do when that happens? So for those listening, if they do experience something like that, what worked for you in that moment?
Well, fortunately, I have family that's extremely supported. So I had my husband and I had my daughter there, and they helped me through it. They gave me a paper bag to breathe in. And
does that actually work?
It does. I think it just distracts you so much because you feel so silly. I don't know. I guess it does work.
I've always wondered. I see them in the movies, but
it's the first thing people do is give you a paper bag. At least it's in a plastic bag.
I know.
But I think to ground yourself, to come present, to look at your body. You're not the 5-year-old, the 6-year-old, the 7-year-old that was abused. You're an adult now. And I think to be able to ground yourself is the first and most important thing. And to get out of the situation, to get away from it, to get away from whatever it is, the bed, the piece of artifact, the tchotchke, the figurine, whatever it is that's triggering you, walk away from it and just try to ground yourself and know that you're safe. I tell myself a lot, when I get really anxious and I fear, I'm safe. I am safe now. I am a grown woman. I'm not that little child anymore. I have power. I have my voice, and I am safe.
Yeah. We have to do that breathing technique that Sarah taught us. Mm-hmm. But I do. That's the thing with triggers, is that you never know when it's going to hit. So it's good to have something. Yeah.
And I think when you come face to face with your perpetrator, you become that little girl again, or that little boy.
I've never had that. I've never faced him since
that time when you were 14.
No, 16 was the last time
16.
I saw him. But yeah, since then I talked about with Sarah actually, the trigger that I felt in the church, but he wasn't even there. I can't even. I think now I could face him.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to come to Georgia? Be my guest.
Yeah.
I actually would like to have a chat with him and see.
My perpetrator's deceased, but I think I definitely would have the power today.
I don't know. I say that now, but now my heart's racing.
Your heart's racing?
No,
I would not cower down. No. No.
Well, what's he going to do now? Yeah, but that's my thing. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You can't do anything.
But there again, survivors don't get justice in the court of law.
Mm-hmm.
I never got justice, and so many don't. Either
nor did I.
They want to protect the family and they don't want to drag the family through this, or there's not enough evidence, or you just don't have the strength or the power to do it.
Well, and it's just the shame within the whole family. It's like nobody wants that out, but it's just detrimental. It's detrimental to the survivor.
Well, and I think people gloss over the fact that a perpetrator has multiple victims. They don't just perpetrate on one child. Statistically, they have up to 117 victims in their lifetime. So by remaining silent, another child is vulnerable to be sexually abused.
And I think, speaking of staying silent, I think the quicker you are to talk about what happened, I think is better, because when you encounter those moments where you have to be around the house, the furniture, the perpetrator, or the people that supported the perpetrator, you will have that support, hopefully, by speaking out.
And if a child is coming to you over the holidays, please believe them, whatever they're telling you, and be that safe person. Be that person in your family, whether it's your cousin, your niece, your nephew, whoever it is. Be the safe person. Get them alone and say, has anyone made you feel uncomfortable? Is there something? I'm your safe person. You can tell me. Be that person in a child's life, because children need that. They need someone that they can go to, that will believe them and will support them and will encourage them. So if a child ever discloses to you, you want to say, this was not your fault. I believe you. And you want to use reflective listening. And what happens is when the child begins to tell you the story, you just repeat what they said back and say, tell me more. And you just want to keep the child talking and make that as safe of an experience as possible for that child, because they will remember that moment for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, for sure. It's a hard thing, but it's so necessary. And on that note,
I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas. From Voice Up to the Voiceless, I'm Angela Williams.
And I'm Katie Sudano.
And we wish you a happy holiday. We thank Mesmerize Media. We thank you for subscribing, and we're so excited for what 2025 is going to bring.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And feel free to share, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any show ideas, or if you'd like to sponsor our show, you can go to www.voiceupforthevoiceless.com / either contact or corporate sponsors.
Thank you.
Thank you.